book available in the back for sale, right?
Yeah, right over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Over here. So, okay, and I'll turn that over to Dr. Allan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad you're here.
Now, will you clap after this thing is over? All right, this is a book that took a while. When I got out of the Army in World War II, none of us seemed to talk about it. And I wanted to get back into school, and I had a GI Bill. Any of you know what the GI Bill is? Some of you do. That was some money that was given to you for college education. And so as long as you had that, you could go to school, and I was able to get a bachelor's and a master's. And later on, I had to get a PhD at that time. But anyhow, a lot of us had been in World War II. And when I went into class, I saw guys that were wearing their pants that they had during the service, for example, or their jacket, or cap, or something like that. But none of us seemed to talk about it. And we went through some heavy stuff, as this book would tell you. We were in combat. I saw many of my buddies shot and killed. And I didn't want to talk about it. And I got out at a time where I couldn't get right into school. I had to wait until the fall. And so I went to my uncle's farm, and I worked on that farm where I had worked before as a kid. And I worked with my cousin. And my cousin was a little older than I, and he'd gone into service in 1940. And he went in for 1 year. But then the World War broke out for us, and he ended up being in 5 years. Hello, 5 years. Anyhow, he was in Africa, he was in Sicily, he was all through Europe, he was in England. This guy could talk for hours about what he did. And he and I didn't talk about any of it. We just did farming kinds of things, that's all. Nothing more. Later on, we talked more, but for a while, we didn't talk about anything. Incidentally, this book is based on what when I was in the United States, and then when we were shipped overseas, we went to, let's see how your geography is good here, New Guinea. How many of you know where New Guinea is? Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
where is it?
It's in Asia.
Oh.
And it extends a long way in the Pacific Ocean. We went from there, we had battle there, we lost a few people there. Then we went up to the East Indies, Netherlands, East Indies. Netherlands is another name for what country, you know? Netherlands, what country is it?
Allan.
Allan, very nice. Sure, it was Dutch East Indies. The Dutch had conquered all of that land, and all of the folks underneath were, I won't say slaves, but they were ordered around, and they were under this kind of discipline. From there, we went to the Philippines Islands. Somebody from the Philippines here? Anybody from the Philippines? Oh. So we went to the Philippines, and we had battle there, and we were there, and we were at a point where we were going to be part of the invasion of Japan when the war ended. So we didn't have that invasion, and we were happy about that. We did go to Japan, though. We were some of the first troops that went to Japan. Do we have Japanese people there? And we landed in Nagoya, okay? And we moved around a little bit. And what was amazing there, and this is reflected in the book, what was amazing there was the Japanese accepted this situation of surrendering and letting the Americans come in and kind of do all things different. They let them do that. I thought that was amazing. In the first month that we were in Japan, the very first month, the first 30 days, there were some 300 cases of crime which involved Americans and Japanese. Anybody want to guess how many Japanese caused these problems? None. All of these were done by American troops. A lot of them about half drunk. I did that, you understand? Here they were. And they just took these kinds of things. They were disciplined people. I never saw disciplined people like the Japanese. But I admired them. Under this kind of condition, they just dealt with it. I'll give you a couple of examples. We were staying in the Mitsubishi aircraft. Is that a word that you know something about that? Mitsubishi? And we were in there, we took it over, and that's where we lived there. And one day we were standing out in front, and there was a railroad that came right by this thing. Like that. And we saw one of our guys walk over to the rail, step in there right in front of this thing coming right at him. This railroad. We thought he was committing suicide. But he'd done this before. And what happens is that engine stops, maybe about where the wall is, stops, and the man in there opens the door. He invites this man to come in, this GI, this American soldier to come in. Sits down. Do you think he paid them anything? No. But they were, their emperor said, surrender, do whatever they tell you to do, don't retaliate, don't fight back. And they didn't. Incredible people. Did I develop respect for the Japanese people? Absolutely. Some of my army buddies think that's not the thing to say.
We should shoot them, bloody Japs. We could shoot them right now.
50 years later. Well, a lot of this is in the book, but I want to just read a few things and then field any questions that you may have. But just a few things that I've written here. Just before the war, during the war, overseas, and so on. So hopefully you'll get a sense of what it's all about. And so, chapter 1. I was barely 18 years of age when the Japanese Air Force bombed Pearl Harbor on Sunday, December 7, 1941. I'd enrolled at Buena Vista College in Storm Lake, Iowa, which is now a university. The preceding September, I was living in the home of Ralph and Marion Reinhardt, who were my employees at the small Reinhardt Dairies in Storm Lake. Some members of the family heard shocking news on the radio. We could hardly believe the news. On top of it all, we were now at war with powerful fascist powers, fascist Nazi powers in Europe and Imperial Japan's armed forces in Asia. It seemed like a bad dream. The The next day, 3 or 4 of us met on camp at a campus hangout in Storm Lake. We talked for hours about the sneak bombing and the terrible damage inflicted on the United States Navy fleet in Pearl Harbor. You know what happened to the American fleet in Pearl Harbor? Anybody know? Were many of them, many boats destroyed? Lots. Lots. We spoke in hushed tones. Sometimes we'd say nothing. It was like a wake for a dear friend or a relative. The Japanese attack seemed unbelievable. In the days that followed Pearl Harbor, my friends and I talked of little other than the bombing and the global effect America suddenly found itself in. We're in a damn world war, someone said. I didn't say that. And we have Germans and Italians in Europe and the Japs in the Pacific, someone else muttered. I said something to the effect that the combined strength of our enemies seemed almost invincible. How could we go up against them? But the unspoken question that was in our mind was, what do we as teenage college students respond, how do we respond to Pearl Harbor and the Second World War? If I had not moved from the south side of Chicago to a large hog and cattle farm in agricultural northwest Iowa, that question would have been raised. Some of my friends from the old neighborhood in Chicago quickly rushed to the Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Corps recruiting offices. As a first semester junior at Chicago's Hyde Park High School in January of '39, 2 of my classmates, only 16 years old, obtained phony birth certificates and went to Spain to fight against the fascist General Francisco Franco. Someone told me a year later, one of the 2 boys was killed in action. I never heard about the other individual. Feelings about the war were very different in northwest Iowa farming communities. A different mentality there, a different response. A few young men traveled to large cities and enlisted soon after Pearl Harbor. As a group, however, the young men on the farms and small towns tended not to rush to the recruiters. None of my friends enlisted in Iowa. I believe that the farm parents generally did not discourage their sons to immediately enlist in the armed forces. Labor was needed on the farm. Their idea of sending their 1 son, or 2 sons, or 3 sons, or whatever, that would hurt the whole farming situation. A neighbor who farmed north of our relatives, talked about this situation to Louis. Louis said, "I need my boys for field work right now." My uncle nodded in agreement. "You can't do it by yourself," he responded. In early 1940s in America, lots of farms used horses to plow, cultivate, and pick corn. Horses were used to put up hay, pull manure spreaders. Most everyone had a tractor, but the horses and the plain old manpower was still essential in making a living on a farm. See why they didn't want their kids to go. It would be a disaster for them. Farm labor would be a problem during World War II. The sons, neighbors, and brothers and cousins eventually went into the military. Many farm hands, like who traveled through Iowa, Nebraska, and other states picking corn and other crops, ended up in one branch or other in the armed forces. So that kind of came to an end. Okay, that gives you kind of a sense of what was going on just when everything happened. This little segment that I'll give you is the military mentality. The military mentality. Very, very different than things are in civilian life. It was very different for all of us. This will give you kind of a sense. I learned the hard way at Fort Devens. Fort Devens was in Massachusetts and was still up until about 3 or 4 years ago in Fort Devens. That there was the Army way and no other way to do while in service. You do the Army way. It's the only way. One day, an Italian-American recruit and I were told to carry hot, soapy water from one area to specific barracks. Barracks where you sleep. And we had 2 or 3 that we were supposed to send water to. We were supposed to clean the floors. The pails were small, so the detail looked like an all-day proposition. One of us suggested that we might cut the time down a lot if we located a large vessel to carry water. We found such a replica, small enough for 2 of us to transport enough water on 2 or 3 trips. We did that. Then we thoroughly scrubbed down the barracks. Now, we did everything we were supposed to do, right? After that, we sat down to rest. My fellow worker was smoking, and I was enjoying a short nap. Our rest was abruptly disturbed when one of the sergeants suddenly appeared. "What in the hell are you doing there?" he yelled. We both jumped to our feet. "We're just taking a break, Sarge." "We carried water and scrubbed down the barracks," my partner replied. "Impossible," he said. "The job would take you all day." "We found a kind of a tub to carry the water, Sarge," I said. "You did what?" "You didn't use the pail I provided for you?" the sergeant yelled, the volume of his voice ever increasing. "No, Sarge," I explained. "We thought it would be an effective way to get it done." The sergeant's face turned beet red. "You thought, Private?" he yelled. "You thought? Did I hear you say thought?" "Yay," my partner said. "Listen up, dog face," with his face no more than 6 inches from the other GI. "You and your stupid buddy," he was referring to me. He turned to me then and wagged his finger in my face. "Understand this, soldier. You don't think ever in this man's army. We think, you obey. You hear me, dog face?" Isn't that terrible to be called something like that? That's what you're called. You better not do anything about it. "Yes, Sergeant," we said quietly. "I can't hear you," he yelled. "Yes, Sergeant," we answered in a loud voice. "We understand. If you don't, soldiers, he threatened, I personally will make your life a hell on earth." And he kept his... All right, now we'll go to a little, to give you a little kind of sense of what New Guinea was and how life was there for us. At first glance, New Guinea looked like a jungle paradise. Beautiful, beautiful colors. Wind coming through and so on. The ocean was a beautiful green, blue color, and the jungle was a glorious mix of swaying palm trees, beautiful flowers of every shade of color imaginable. A sizable mountain stream was close to one of our first camping sites. The water was clear, ice cold, and wonderful to drink, which we'd been told not to do. We did it. We had to be a little, you can't be always vague, right? You understand that? You go with that? One Sunday, I believe, Dutch Lenahan, who was a buddy of mine, died 2 years ago, and I climbed up over boulders through deep pockets of water. After perhaps an hour, we reached the top. Both of us carved our initials in a tall tree. We rested on a large rock, looked down at the jungle and the ocean beneath. The view was spectacular. It was beautiful to look around. On another occasion, we saw a Papuan male slowly whipping down the jungle path near our campsite. When he came closer, we saw the man was afflicted with elephantiasis. Ever heard of that one? A terrible disease common to New Guinea. One of the poor man's legs was loaded to 3 or 4 times its normal width. You looked and you couldn't believe your eyes. Blood and pus oozed out of open sores which covered most of his infection. Malaria was also a danger in the jungles of New Guinea. Carried by female Anopheles mosquitoes, the disease could be fatal. We were urged to take Aberdeen pills that were distributed to troops every day. We were told that the pills would protect us from getting malaria. Some of the men refused to take the pills, careless about pill regularity. I wasn't. I'll give you just a little sense of that. And here, we'll talk about our connections and stuff with home. When you're living on halfway around the world, all your family, all your loved ones are over here. Letters from home, because you wouldn't get anything but in there weren't phones, they were called. Yeah. Letters were what you look forward to. And we, oftentimes, between fighting, we were very bored. Now, that sounds funny. Oh, we're in fighting now, you're not going to be bored. No, but you can get your head shot off. You know, you're not happy about that, but we're talking about reality. Books supplied by special services helped me pass the days with some satisfaction. Some of my buddies, however, were not avid readers. We all liked movies, and that distracted us some from real-life conditions. For a number of reasons, I was glad that I wasn't a married man or engaged to a girl back home while in the service, especially overseas. I'd broken up with my high school sweetheart a year or so before I was inducted into the armed forces. While I was stationed in Massachusetts, she wrote me a very sweet letter, which I carried in my pant pocket for weeks. 3 or 4 times I stood outside a public phone booth debating whether or not to call her. I never made the call. Why? I'm not sure. Down deep, I believed that I would not survive the war. Lots of guys felt that way. I wouldn't make it. I was pretty convinced I would be wounded in combat and die. I also believed if I survived, I'd be gone for years. It was a common saying in our outfit in 1944, listen to these numbers now, about the end of the war. Guys said Golden Gate in 48. So they're thinking they were going to be there how many years? We returned to the United States from Asia in combat in 1948. That we would return. We came a little in 45, actually. At the time, I thought it was an extremely optimistic timetable. I remember telling my buddies it would be more like 1950 before the war would end. The idea of separation from a girlfriend, a fiancée, a wife, for 6 or 7 years weighed heavily in my mind. Considering all the uncertainties of the time, I thought it was better that my former girlfriend and I went our own way. Did I marry her later? Okay. This is a little piece, and it's the last one and I'll read, and then if you want to fire a question, tell me that. This is kind of a condition that many people in the military have to face. 2 men and I, a corporal and another PFC, that's a private first class, disobeyed a direct order in Luzon, Philippines, in 1945. We argued among ourselves what we planned to do and whether it was not disobedience, and then it came to real decision. The direct order to us was to shoot at anything that moves after somebody. If you hear something moving, animal, person, whatever, fire. That's what you're supposed to be doing. That's the order. 3 of us were ordered to listen for enemy troops or snipers. You know what a sniper is? Sneak up along a shallow stream to a tiny field hospital. Now, this is not anything like MASH that was going on there. You know, instead of having all kinds of people there and beautiful nurses, there was one guy, one doctor, working with his undershirt off, sweaty, dirty guy, and he had one person helping him, a male person. So not exactly like this. And this was only a few yards from us. We were to protect the supply dumps there and other military persons in the immediate area. The sergeant decided on the precise location where 2 PFCs would dig. I was one of those. We would mount a 30 caliber water-cooled machine gun and arrange our grenades. You know what grenades are? It's a little bomb, really. You just take it off and drop it, but you didn't want to be standing up while that thing comes up. Let's see some more. And arrange hand grenades on our small dirt ledges in this hole. We'd also dig a foxhole wide enough that all 3 of us could fire at the enemy if the occasion was necessary. So we wanted to be kind of under the ground, have guns up here, and pull the trigger and get the enemy. The plan was us to follow the convention military sleep pattern throughout the night. All 3 of us would be on duty for 2 hours and off at 4. Now that's what you're supposed to do, but when you're in this kind of situation and you think you're going to get shot the next minute, you think you're going to sleep very much? You don't. Or sometimes you're just so tired you just fall off into sleep and that happens. Digging anything on hard clay ground on a designated site, much less a foxhole, is extremely difficult. The other PFC and I literally chipped away at the ground. Damn, this ground is like rock, I said to my comrade. Yeah, and it's getting dark. We'll be lucky, he said, if 2 of us can fit into the hole. This was the corporal. Do your best you can, man. We have to lie flat. If we have to lie flat for protection, that's better than nothing. After an hour or so, we dug in about 8 to 10 inches, an almost rock-like surface. The corporal spelled us digging. He came in and dig some too. But our foxhole wasn't much of a hole as the sun began to set. Basically, we caved out a kind of a shallow ditch, no more than 18 inches tall. Laying flat, we might avoid enemy fight. Maybe. We'd gather branches and fallen palm trees, which we calibrate our low oxygen. Literally minutes after completing our camouflage efforts, we heard a noise in the direction of the stream. Then we identified voices and the soft cries of the carabao. Carabao is an Asian buffalo. As people drew closer, we could hear men, women, and children speaking to one another in one of the Filipino dialects. This was clearly villages with children and heavy laden burdens, probably leaving their villages located between the guns of the enemy and our own. So these people were running away from this situation. But were there Japanese soldiers walking closely behind the natives? It's almost dark. Or were they walking side by side with Filipino men and women? Were the enemies using civilians as a shield? We didn't know. The corporal, the PFC, and I huddled. What are we going to do, sir? If we're ordered, we do as we ordered. Filipino, the corporal whispered. We may kill a whole village of innocent Filipinos. But if the Japs are mixed up with the village, I said, that would be the end of us. The other PFC said, can we disobey an order? And we not shoot at anything that moves. We talked for another 2 minutes and decided we'd take this action. I would meet the group with carbine rifles, in other words, drawn. We would try to see in the dusk of evening if Japanese soldiers had indeed infiltrated Filipino villages escaping from Japanese-American battlefield. The group appeared. Now you want to understand, it's almost night. The men at the front of the group threw up their hands in a gesture of surrender. They were scared. We were shooting. You know, we had guns at them. What are you going to do? Put your hands up? Oh, yeah. We pointed toward the beach behind us and ordered them to go directly there. As they passed, we strained our eyes to detect any Japanese troops. Now, at this time, you have to really look awful hard. Are these Japanese? Are these Filipinos? There were none. We breathed a sigh of relief and followed the refugees who had gathered on the beach. Stay here, the corporal ordered the group, all night. Do not move. Sleep on the beach. Those were his orders, very explicit. Between words and gestures, the refugees seemed to comprehend the seriousness of their condition. The next morning, they were all huddled together, standing at a foot of water from the rising tide. They obeyed your down. The next day, the three of us agreed never to describe this incident to anybody. Now, I put it in a book, huh? Well, then I'm coming to me now. Although we were very sure that the group were Philippine refugees, we disobeyed orders. It could have been Japanese soldiers in the midst of the group, prepared to kill us and others behind our machine gun outposts. We will never tell anyone what happened, right? The corporal said to us. Oh, sure, I answered. It never happened, the other PFC said. We took a big chance, men, corporal concluded. I could have opened up on those civilians, I said. I wouldn't have given the order, Hank, he says. The corporal said, shaking his head. And that was a scary thing. And we didn't kill anybody. So these are some of the things. If you have questions on the war or how it was written, how it was done, how it was written too. I'll handle those now. Any questions you have? Comments? Be shy. I don't bite. And I'm not going to grade you either. How about that, guys?
Here.
Okay.
I was just wondering how it, I know it's been out there this past facility, but I was just wondering how it feels to have published this piece on your experiences. How does it feel to have it published?
Well, I like to think that it kind of fits in, because I'm not aware of any book that really studies where we were and our outfit. Some of my Army or the buddies that are still alive, I've encouraged them to write things down. One had kept much. It was about 3 or 4 times as thick. He kept a daily kind of a record of everything that he did. He didn't put it in book form. His wife talked to me about that, and I suggested that there would be libraries who would like to have that material.
It's not your first publication.
No, I've done other.
In fact, they're still using his books here.
Yeah, some of them. Those are the easy ones, guys. Yeah.
Have you ever returned to any of the places that you were stationed at during the war?
Yeah, we were stationed not overseas, but we were stationed in Florida, in Carabel, Florida, where much much of the terrain is similar to New Guinea and the Philippines. And we thought it was terrible to be down there and this, all these swamps and everything. But it was good training because that's exactly what, when we went overseas, we had that same kind of thing. And then we'd go out in the water because we were an amphibious group. We had half of our people were boat people. And they took care of the boats. We were on the shore. So they would take us up to the land and then drop the ramp. We would come across and do what we needed to do. And the terrain there was very much like New Guinea. Very much. So when we got to New Guinea, it was kind of like coming home. It was really good training. I sometimes was critical of what the military did, but I have to admit that a lot of times they were right. It was good that we were doing what we were doing in Florida. It helped us a lot when we got overseas. Yes.
My name is Leo, and I came from Korea.
Oh.
I understand your feeling because I was a soldier too.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, could you say your opinion about Iraq war as a background?
All right, now you're asking me to judge which now? In general?
What's your opinion of Iraq war?
Well, if I'm understanding you, I think the military has some values, whether it's Korean or whether it's whatever, Japanese, German. The military imposes upon you, even sometimes you don't want to have this, but you learn discipline, and I think you learn to be somewhat more. It seems more easy for you to deal with problems. So I think it has value, and most of the people that I know that have been in the military, whether they were, and in the Philippines, Filipino soldiers who were very helpful to us a lot. And I don't care where it is, I think that the military is a good experience. For the first year I was in the military, I'd never say that. I would rather have my tongue saying that. But looking at it as a whole thing over a 3-year period and being both in non-combat and in combat, I find that it's good. I think it was good for me. I think it was good for my buddies. Some of my buddies and people that were in my company had no. They had to go all their way. Well, after a while, they couldn't go all the way because someone over them was telling them, "You do this. You're doing this. Get over here and do that." So you find your military experience useful?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And yeah. Anybody else have military experience here? Okay. Where were you?
Pardon?
Where were you?
Dominican Republic,
Ah, okay.
the unknown war.
The unknown war. I think wars are wars, aren't they? To some degree.
Do they know that your letters were used on the History Channel? Did you tell them?
Yeah. No, I didn't say that. This kind of, I think I mentioned the letters to my mother. And a couple of years before she died, she said, "I have something for you." And she brings out this
Paper bag.
paper bag. Yeah, it was just a paper bag, really. And she said, I saved all the letters you wrote. Oh, when I would start thinking about doing this, and even just a little before, I sent a couple of them to the history team. History, what?
So you sent it to the museum, and then they, in Florida, and then they.
Oh, yeah, that's my wife, she knows them all. Oh, yeah, that's right, I forgot.
So if you ever see letters home on the History Channel, a couple of them were written by him, and but he signed it, that time his name was Al, H-A-L. So you read here that they're still playing that.
They called me up and talked, and this was ego, real ego. And I said, people tell me my voice is fairly young. I said, I'd be happy to do the speaking. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Allan, but we have our staff here. Kind of. Any other questions or comments? I don't like it. I think this government did a bunch of very irrational and untrue kinds of things. So I don't. I guess that's one of the things that kind of just you mentioned that, and I mentioned our guys over there getting killed just about every day. For what? And I think that's the difference in those of us that were in different wars. We felt that we were contributing something. We were doing something for our country. And the same for a war. We're supporting a good element in this. I don't like it at all. I know a lot of other people disagree with me, but I don't find that justified. Yes, sir.
Comment and then a question.
Sure.
A lot of people here don't realize what you're talking about, agricultural labor. That Chicago area wasn't always what the urban sprawl it is now. In World War II, the area around South Allen, Illinois, 159th and Paulson, was agricultural, typically produce farming. And starting about mid-1943 in Thornton, Illinois, in Forsyth, there was a large prisoner of war camp built that held several thousand German prisoners of war from around West Africa. When I was a little kid, about 7 or 8 years old, we used to ride our bicycles over early in the morning and see the Supermen marched up Cottage Grove or State Street to work in the farm fields in South Holland, and they made close friends with many of the South Holland Dutch American.
They're pleased probably to be there.
Yes. And, they weeded the Nazis out very, very quickly. You'd see the 2 Americans guarding 100, 150 prisoners, so obviously the prisoners weren't going anywhere. But we kept them till somewhat late in 1946 before we were sent back to Germany, because they had to go through a democracy course and be not denazified. So, then the second, my question was, were you a combat engineer or?
Yeah, the
when you did
Higgins
assaults on
engineers.
Higgins boats?
Yeah, we would, our outfit had guys had the boats, and they had like coxswain and all these naval terms, and we would come up with H-hour plus 3. H-hour was the landing of the first landing on any one of the places, and 3 minutes later, our outfits were in. What we would do, you can visualize the beach. We would go in and set up our machine guns here and here and here and here and here. And if this never happened to us, but if we were pushed back, then our troops could join with us, and we'd go back. We'd have machine guns on them anyhow. So we weren't
participated in the assaults.
sometimes we were pulled off into, for example, in the Philippines, there's so many American infantry people who were getting killed. And my hat was always off to the Indians. I think they were right up front all the time. And on 2 occasions, I and some others were set up to be with them because they had leading them, not a captain because he was dead, not lieutenants because they was dead. And this guy was a staff sergeant. He was in charge of that whole unit. We joined. And it was scary stuff. And to be real honest with you, I was very happy when we were done with this thing and I could go back to the beach rather than doing what the infantry guys did. Because they're poking their heads into areas they don't know who's there. You know, they may walk right into enemy machine gun. It's the end of it. All kinds of things. Yes,
Go ahead, let the students go.
okay, sure.
I saw the movie about Harvard.
Harvard, yeah.
And then another movie, Beat Poker. They kind of background about the World War II. Is it real happened like when during the fight between the Japanese and Americans, and the Japanese tried to get the password from the Americans, so when they translate each other like could you get that password and they like a translator? And then Japanese translate every American password, so Americans change the rules, so they work with Indians, and so they change the password.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
Code breaking. Yeah, I know that was going.
That was where they used Navajo Indians and people.
Oh, yeah.
Celebrated the movie Code Breaker.
Oh, okay. I'm not. I knew that generally.
Nobody knows Navajo except for another Navajo.
Harvard Bill 2, when the Japanese attack Harvard Bill, before attack the Harvard Bill, I think try to get the password for document from the American soldiers, and they try to change the password for, yeah, they try to.
I think so. Yeah, as far as I know. Yeah.
How did you solve your stress? What was your entertainment?
I'm sorry.
How did you solve your stress when you were solving? What was your entertainment? Drinking?
Drinking, yes. I was foolish in those days, and I was a boxer. And there were 4 of us in a team, and we would box ourselves. And if we could get somebody else in the ring, we would box them. And sometimes in New Guinea, for example, there was a Australian guy that was organizing, and they were looking for fighters, and so the 4 of us went in.
Why the Harvard Bill was that much important in your
Hank, we can't hear questions back.
sorry. Why the Harvard Bill is very important during the World War II? Why Japan attacked
Well,
that type of
yeah, for one thing, it was the most important place for the Navy. It was loaded when it was bombed. It was loaded with almost all of our really big naval forces, and so just that thing alone was a terrible blow for us in the Pacific. Very, very, very bad. So we didn't have the Navy
refer to young man, rent the film Tora, Tora, Tora. It's historically accurate. The Japanese film industry participated in filming it. It's historically accurate. The recent movie Pearl Harbor is a historical fiction, greatly distorted. Many things never happened in there. The gentleman who was the pilot, who was all over the world, went to Purdue, one of my fraternity brothers. That never happened. He was a very valiant pilot, but he never flew in England. He never flew a B-25 bomber. That whole movie was grossly inaccurate. But the main thing about Pearl Harbor and angered Americans greatly was the Japanese embassy was supposed to deliver a declaration of war just before the attack. They took an exceptionally long time with a high-level guy decoding something that he was not a very good typist. And so they presented, the Japanese embassy presented the declaration of war after the attack was completed. And Americans did not take very kindly to that. Admiral Yamamoto, who was the Japanese admiral who planned the attack, had been on the Japanese embassy staff in 1920 and 30 and gone to Harvard. He knew Americans very well. He knew how big America was. He knew America's industrial might. And he was not in favor of the attack. He did it under orders, planned it, just as a military man did. And at the end, when the word came back to Tokyo of the success of the attack, in fact, there was no resistance by the Americans to speak of, all other than my classmate a couple years ago, who did take off and shoot down some Japanese airplanes. Yamamoto's staff immediately cheered. This is a new movie, the Japanese fighter movie. And he silences him and he said that I can think of nothing that infuriated the Americans more than this attack. And all we've done is awaken a sleeping tiger and fill them with a terrible resolve. So, rent Tora, Tora, Tora. You get a much better idea of that. And the Japanese part is done by the Japanese film industry. It's subtitled in English from the Japanese perspective. So, I don't know what ancestry you are. Are you Japanese? Okay. You understand Japanese at all? Okay. Read the subtitles.
Any final comments?
There was a question.
Oh, I don't know if we have time. I was going to say, what should our generation take away from, what you've taught us in the book and your experiences in World War II? Is there something that we should learn for the future to avoid something like this happening again? I'm sorry.
We'll be here for 3 hours.
I don't know, that's a heavy question.
Or how about this? Let me rephrase it. Is there something that we can get from this book that we can't get from a secondary source, like a regular textbook on history? What can we get out of this that we can't get from it?
A lot of specifics, a lot of specific kinds of things here. A lot of the books will generally treat things so you can get an overview. I've got a segment in here after the war in Japan, and that hasn't. I don't think it's really been treated. And I had the opportunity to experience how the Japanese responded, and I'll give you a very, very fast one. No one during in combat put your stripes or anything like that. The officers would take off their stuff too. You don't want to be, hey, I'm a general. So anyhow, we wanted to get the stuff we were going home. And it's a Japanese guy that was in this building where we were. And he said, well, I have a nephew who's a tailor. He would do these things for you. And so we decided, he gave us the direction to do this. second block, there are some GIs, but mostly Japanese. And about the third or fourth block, it's all Japanese. So here we're walking, a couple of army guys, walking along, and there's men and women and young and old and in between and so on. And I thought to myself, you know, if they wanted to kill us, someone put out a gun, both, and then drag us into an alley, who would ever know? None of that was done. The Japanese paid really no attention to us. We went into the tailor's place. We gave him the information, and he said he'll have it done the next day. Next day we go back. He invites my buddy and I to come in and have some tea. And so we moved up this, and I don't know if you know this, but there's this, in Asia you don't find many chairs and things. And there was none there. They have some pillows that you can sit on. And so we sat down, and I've used this on my wife, and she's such a nice sister. That'll be the last time I ever did that. Anyhow, the mother came in, and she laid tea down in front of us, and in front of her husband, and she went back. And also with her husband was a young Japanese guy who looked to me to be somewhere around our age. So my question was he in the Japanese Army? How does he feel about it? So we have this tea. My buddy's over here, everybody here.
They probably never
Should
would
I
have
drink this? I look at him. It was delightful. That was no attempt. They could have done this. They could have done it easily. But they didn't. And that was just this discipline, this brutality kind of nature that the Japanese people have. It's over, it's done. No job without it. It was another insight into personality. Thank you very much for being a great audience.